2024 is shaping up to be the year of Shadow the Hedgehog, with Sonic Prime having wrapped up recently, where Shadow's been the best he's been in a very long time. Shadow being the main attraction for the third Sonic movie later this year, alongside rumors of a dedicated TV show spin-off for Shadow sometime down the line. And now, after a series of leaks stemming from known leaker Special Nick, who I've mentioned on the channel before, he called for a Sonic Generations remaster with a hint of something for Shadow during the most recent State of Play. And sure enough, he not only got the day the State of Play was going to happen correct, but him and another leaker also got the part about Sonic Generations correct as well. Not only are we getting a Sonic Generations remaster for every console, including the PS4, Xbox One, and even the Switch, marking the first time the game's been made available on a Nintendo console that's not the 3DS version. But we're also getting an entirely brand new campaign focusing on Shadow the Hedgehog, essentially the Bowser's Fury to Generations. I had a general idea of what to expect after hearing these rumors, alongside some theories floating around my head that some people seem to agree with. So I was pretty excited, but also pretty nervous at the same time, cause Generations was already a pretty short game, all things considered, but I walked away from this impressed, and did not expect this to be the literal third thing to be shown off in the State of Play. So by this point, I did not care about anything else that was getting shown. We just got a massive Sonic surprise that I couldn't be happier about, so get the Death Stranding sequel out of here. And on that note, we're going to go over everything we know about this collection so far, so just a fair warning, this video is going to contain heavy speculation in terms of Shadow's campaign, okay? Now yes, this does technically count as news-related content, which I've been trying to stay away from, which caused a major debate with myself, but the urge to theorize was very strong with this one. It's like sticking a chocolate bar in front of me during a chocolate shortage. Chocolate! So I don't care, I made the exception, and if the algorithm chooses to become my enemy,
I will fight like I always have.
So hitting that like button really does help out with that. First of all, Sonic and Shadow Generations is developed by Sonic Team, the same team behind the original version of Generations, and more recently, Sonic Frontiers. So no blind squirrel shenanigans this time around. But with how good Frontiers turned out, I'm so glad they're doing this while we wait for the next open zone entry. I mean, look at this. This is nuts for Hedgehog Engine 2. Forces ain't got nothing on this. The Generations Collection, as I'm calling it, releases on every platform, PS4 and 5, Xbox One and Series, Switch, PC via Steam and Epic this fall. Pre-orders and prices aren't available yet, so you've still got some time to buy the original Generations on the Xbox and Steam marketplaces before it possibly gets delisted and losing over a decade of mods for the game, but that's if Sega even delists it in favor of this new version. However, it doesn't appear to be the case for the time being, cause as of recording, the original versions are still up. Regarding the fall release window, which I'm just going to say is November, cause that's just the typical month Sonic games tend to release in. Frontiers, Forces, and many others did it. Superstars didn't, it released in October, though speaking of Superstars, there is a Shadow costume available to download right now. Simply because of this announcement, well, so much for some classic Shadow mayhem to unfold, but if it is indeed November, then it's releasing roughly a month before Sonic Movie 3 drops, leading to a double dose of Shadow to wrap up the year, and also giving people who didn't get the chance to be acquainted with Shadow's backstory at the time Adventure 2, Heroes, Shadow's game, or even Sonic X released, kind of an in-depth introduction to Shadow's past, but more on that later. Let's talk about the remaster of Sonic Generations first. It looks to run at 60 frames per second. There's going to be some bonus content according to the PlayStation Store. Not sure what that's going to be, but I would imagine it'll be some extra missions, music tracks from later games like Lost World, Forces, Boom, Team Sonic Racing and Frontiers, but most importantly, customization options. Though cosmetics would be nice, I'm more so referring to custom control layouts, which, after playing Frontiers for countless hours, is bound to be very confusing upon returning to Generations. Tried it with Forces, cause it has the exact same control scheme, and it did not go well. If Blind Squirrel could do it with Colors Ultimate, I see no reason for it to not happen here. Outside of that stuff though, I'm not really sure what else they could add to the base experience. Aside from Mania's drop dash, it's gonna have some upgraded visuals, which I can't say too much about, cause the trailer looked a bit compressed in 1080p, at least to me anyway. Thanks a lot, YouTube. Other than that though, there's not too much to say about the core Generations experience. I'm just pretty happy that I'm going to be able to play one of my favorite Sonic games up there with Unleashed and Frontiers for the first time in years after my Xbox 360 unfortunately died a few years back. So needless to say, I'm very excited to revisit this game. But now we get to the Shadow portion of the package, which I did not expect Marza to just plop Shadow into the original opening CGI animation so seamlessly, then having him do the pose from his own game. So cool. I don't even know where to begin, cause this 30 to 40 seconds alone was just packed full of so much. Like, and I still can't believe I'm saying this in 2024, but Black Doom is back. Somehow, cause he's supposed to be dead at the end of Shadow's game, and he's twisting the stage into this psychedelic state before popping out the other side into Westopolis, is legit the craziest thing I've ever seen a Sonic game do, not gonna lie. And now I wish I paid more attention to the Black Arms mention in Frontiers. Then we have the character animations on display here, and legitimately I thought this segment was CGI, but no, this is Hedgehog Engine 2 hitting heights the team could not reach in Forces, and I would love to see stuff like this implemented into a Frontiers sequel. Though, like Forces and the main Generations campaign, Shadow's story is comprised of linear stages. Yes, I get the criticism for the cyberspace stages in Frontiers, which, thanks to the spin dash, are way better than they were at launch. So I can see why some people might worry about how this will turn out, especially with Forces producer Shun Nakamura seemingly leading the project. But I'm not ready to cast judgment on it just yet, at least until I see more of the game. There are multiple and even hidden pathways, so that's already a good sign. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe as I'm looking into doing more Sonic content throughout the year. So with that said, let's get back to the video. We'll come back to the gameplay aspect in just a minute, but first, let's shift to the story aspect of the game. According to the PlayStation blog, the PS Store, and Takashi Iizuka, the story will run in parallel and cross over with Sonic's portion of the story, which makes sense cause Shadow is there for a boss fight and a couple of ending cutscenes, but isn't too involved in the story otherwise. Players will get to know him more as a character and understand his motivations. It'll create the ultimate celebration of classic Sonic, modern Sonic, and Shadow gameplay that all fans will surely enjoy. Now this is good to hear, especially since Shadow's a top 3 character for me and surely plenty of other people, but for anyone who's been out of the loop-de-loop with the Sonic series since at least 06, Shadow's character hasn't really been the same. Ask anyone in the community and they'll tell you that Shadow, ever since Sonic Boom, has either been more of a jerk to everyone and or overly rivalistic with Sonic. And one of the examples people like to bring up is the Team Sonic Racing shorts. What? Sonic Prime, on the other hand, did a fantastic job at bringing the character back to a more recognizable state, as well as having the best VA in a very long time, who I actually wouldn't mind taking over the role in the games if Jason Griffith isn't available, and I'll probably get some flack for this, but Shadow in the IDW comics, for the most part, was handled pretty well. We have Ian Flynn to thank for that, who also wrote the story of Frontiers, its prologue animation for Knuckles, and now having a hand in Shadow Generations' story. He's course-corrected a lot of ships in the series, and I'm glad he's coming back to clean things up in regards to Shadow's characterization and backstory, especially after the way the story was handled in Shadow's game, which I cannot speak for 100% cause I ain't played it. And I was kinda joking about this on Twitter, but if they can't get Sean Shamel back to voice Black Doom, just let Ian do it. He does a pretty good job.
Going spelunking, Shadow. I see you.
All I'm saying is that if Sega can get Doom's voice back, and since Mike Pollock started voicing Eggman in the games, starting with Shadow's game where Doom was introduced, it would make sense to get Jason Griffith back for the role of Shadow, since that was also his first time voicing Shadow in the games. Consider it a reunion of sorts. It probably won't happen since Kirk Thornton already does Shadow in the main Generations. Now, I don't have anything against Kirk Thornton's Shadow. No, not that Shadow, but you get what I mean. It's just his take on the character is a mixed bag for me. Some games he's good, others not so much. Jason, on the other hand, even though he's not voiced the character in over a decade since being replaced, still nails Shadow's voice and remains my favorite VA for the character. Sorry, I've had a lot that I've been wanting to say in regards to Shadow's casting for a while, so here's hoping this'll be where they take what people liked about Kirk's Shadow in Forces and apply here in Generations. But anyways, here's the plot synopsis for Shadow Generations according to the PlayStation Store. Play as Shadow the Hedgehog in a brand new story campaign featuring never-before-seen powers and abilities. When Shadow's old nemesis, Black Doom, re-emerges and threatens to take over the world, Shadow must journey into his own past, confront painful memories, face familiar foes, and unlock new powers to save the world, and prove why he's known as the ultimate life form. So yeah, if it wasn't already obvious, it sounds like this game's going to be a bit darker than Sonic Frontiers, a bit more in-depth than Sonic Generations' otherwise paper-thin plot, and more in line with Shadow's own game, minus the weapons and swearing of course.
Where's that fourth Chaos Emerald?
Fun fact, there was actually going to be way worse things said in Shadow's game, but they had to cut a lot of things for rating reasons. This info comes from Jason Griffith, former voice of Sonic and Shadow, during a Q&A a few months ago. Getting back on track, you cannot have Shadow's backstory without including Maria in the picture. Literally the darkest and most important part of Shadow's backstory, so seeing how this aspect is going to be handled both here and in Sonic Movie 3 is going to be interesting. Say what you will about the dark era of Sonic games, I grew up in that era, and I'm so glad to see it making a return lately. This, of course, brings me to Black Doom, who not only looks like a Final Fantasy character, but was supposedly dead in the final battle of Shadow's game 19 years ago. I'm just gonna say it, this is Shadow the Hedgehog 2, and you won't convince me otherwise. They even call back to that game's logo for Pete's sake. So the question is, why or how is he still alive here? Yes, the story does cross over with the base Generations, so the Time Eater is very likely how that's possible, but I feel like there's something more to his return, considering Doom can create illusions of another time and place, as well as having a mental link with Shadow, so I'd imagine Doom finds out that he dies at the hands of Shadow, and then tries to prevent it from happening. But for the Time Eater to be involved in his return, and I'm fast approaching spoiler territory for those who did not play Generations originally, Eggman used the Time Eater to undo his previous defeats. While he was a boss in Shadow's game, he wasn't the main threat. Instead, he was caught in the middle of an invasion by the Black Arms, who Black Doom leads, enlisting his robots to push back against them. So by that logic, it would make sense for Doom and Perfect Chaos to be here, since both got in the way of Eggman's goals. but it honestly does not explain why Crisis City is in the main game, given Eggman never even seen the place. Though that's a whole other set of theories involving 2006's events, winding up in white space after the ending reset everything, not to mention Blaze still somehow remembering Crisis City regardless of that fact. However, this does tie into the synopsis mentioning familiar foes. We've already seen the Bio-Lizard from Sonic Adventure 2, which, fun fact, this is actually a boss in the 3DS version of Generations, so we are technically getting 3DS content. Doom's Eye is seen flying around Westopolis, so since Doom is already mentioned and foes are in plural, it means there'll likely be another main boss that's not the Bio-Lizard. To me, this screams Mephiles from Sonic 06. In that game, before it got erased from canon, he's basically the main villain of Shadow's story, who then proceeds to kickstart the end of the world by killing Sonic. I tell ya, the Dark Era was truly something you just had to be there to witness. So you'd better believe that when discussion comes up in regards to the best Sonic villains, this guy is always at the top of the list. And taking into consideration that he's been popping up everywhere lately, from merchandise to playable appearances in Force's Speed Battle, combine that with the initial plans to bring him back in the main Sonic Forces, and the 06 elements already in the base Generations, on top of Ian Flynn mentioning at one point the idea that the Time Eater is a fragment of him, there's almost no way that Sega is going to let an opportunity to bring him back into the canon just slip by. I mean, and I cannot stress this enough, but it's been 19 years since we saw Black Doom, and 18 for Mephiles in a mainline game. It's very much possible they'll want Shadow to face off with him again, and Sega is well aware of his popularity. So it'll be interesting if they have him retain his memories from 06, while Shadow and nobody else, except Blaze, remembers a thing from that game. Speaking of Blaze, and since the story does cross over with the main Generations, I just want Shadow to have some sort of interaction with her, since it's never really been a thing. Also, Blaze Generations would be nice too. I'm clearly asking for too much here. Final thing I want to say about bosses, aside from Sonic needing to be a boss, since we're seeing the story from Shadow's perspective, it makes perfect sense. But I've been seeing people mentioning how Infinite could make it into the game as a boss for Shadow. And while I'm not against the idea, simply by what's been accomplished in this segment of a trailer, the problem is, Forces takes place after Generations, as indicated in issue 5 of the IDW comics, which they themselves take place directly after Forces. So sadly, I don't really see Infinite returning for this, but I would love to be proven wrong. Going back to the gameplay, Shadow's got a few familiar moves in his arsenal, one of them being Chaos Control, where he teleports to enemies instead of homing attacks. Some people did point out that the Frontier's delay between attacks is present here. Consistency is going to be a very important factor here, since it's bundled with the base Generations, which does not have the attack delay of Frontiers. Chances are this might be adjusted closer to launch. The other power being Chaos Spear, seen during the Bio-Lizard fight, which, as someone who's never touched Adventure 2, already looks pretty cool. And they seem to be taking some notes from the Titan fights in Frontiers, so that's a nice touch. If there's any other abilities beyond these two, I don't know, but since there's an emphasis on brand new powers, as mentioned in the game description, I'm willing to bet we'll see a few additional moves like Chaos Blast, dealing massive damage in the nearby area. Arguably, that would be a returning ability since it was used in Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's all I got. Though I feel like a Super Shadow fight is a requirement at this point. Will it happen? I don't know, but it would be pretty epic. As for the length of the campaign, we're not entirely sure on that. I'm hoping it's at least the length of the main Generations, or a bit longer, and not the length of the episode Shadow DLC for Forces. but if it is the same length, and let's pretend that it is, we could be looking at around 9 stages, 3 main bosses, and 3 rival bosses. All the stages that's been confirmed so far is Final Rush from Adventure 2 and Westopolis from Shadow the Hedgehog, with the two connecting right into each other, so it's possible there could be more stages, depending on how consistent this interconnectivity is throughout the story. Personally, I'm hoping for some more Sonic Heroes or 06 stages. I know, how dare I suggest more Sonic 06 content. Also, not expecting Storybook or Forces stages for obvious reasons. However, Shadow did appear in Colors DS, so I could maybe see that happening. Shadow also had a major role in the Sonic Rivals games, so maybe this could be a way to get some representation for those often not talked about enough Sonic games that were exclusive to the PSP. But at the end of the day, whatever happens, I do hope it's a considerable amount of content that makes the wait worthwhile. So with that said, that's pretty much everything we know about the game, and also every bit of speculation I have about the game so far. Nevertheless, what do you think about Sonic and Shadow Generations? Be sure to leave everything down in the comments section below. Also be sure to subscribe and ring that bell for more Sonic content. And once again, I've been Blue Knight. Thank you so much for watching and for the constant support. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys back here next time.